Hello, Internet. My name is Nora, 32, female, from Arizona. I feel like I have spent most of my life perpetually in the shadow of my older sister, Lena. Lena is 3 years older than me and has always been the favorite. She was described as the type who was smart, social, and could charm her way out of anything. In contrast, I was labeled the responsible one, which was just code for the person who had to do all the work and received none of the credit. Growing up, Lena received the best of everything. Her birthdays were huge backyard parties featuring bounce houses and pony rides. Mine, however, was a simple pizza party in the dining room with a cake purchased from a grocery store bakery. For Christmas, Lena received the elaborate Barbie dream house, while I was given a second-hand knockoff that was missing the elevator. My parents' typical justification was to tell me, "You don't need all that fancy stuff," or "Be grateful for what you have, Nora." While I tried to be grateful, I couldn't help but observe that Lena's gratitude was never required in the same manner. The significant division became starkly apparent when I attended college. I had worked relentlessly in high school, juggling AP classes and extracurriculars to maintain a high GPA. I planned to commute from home to a local university to save on dorm costs. Since my parents had fully covered everything for Lena when she attended her dream school, I assumed they would support me as well, but this proved wrong. When I proposed living at home, my mother stated matter-of-factly, "If you're staying here, you'll need to contribute." She emphasized that Lena received a full ride from them because she deserved it, but I needed to learn responsibility. I was shocked that at age 18, about to start college, they expected me to pay rent. This required contribution was set at $400 a month for rent and utilities, and I was expected to buy my own groceries. This amount was challenging for a financially broke college freshman working part-time at a bookstore for only $9 an hour. When I attempted to remind them how they covered every expense for Lena, ensuring she never worried about money, my mother simply shrugged and said, "You're different. You're independent. You'll figure it out." So I figured it out. I worked as many hours as possible, sometimes skipping meals just to make ends meet. I often walked past the campus coffee shop, envying students who could afford lattes, while I subsisted on brown bag peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and the free coffee available in the bookstore break room. I never purchased a textbook at full price, relying entirely on secondhand copies or borrowing from the library. Every month, I delivered the required $400 to my parents. Simultaneously, Lena was living in a shiny new, parent-paid-for dorm at her out-of-state school. Lena once called me to complain that the AC in her dorm was insufficient, while I couldn't even afford to repair the AC unit in my car. My parents continued to send Lena spending money every month. I overheard my mother explaining that they didn't want Lena to struggle, adding, "College is hard enough." I stood in the kitchen holding my $1 ramen noodles, wondering why that compassion never extended to me. The disparity continued through graduation. Lena achieved a 3.2 GPA in communications, and my parents threw her a huge graduation party with a catered buffet and a DJ. When I graduated with a 3.9 GPA and a degree in computer science, we had a quiet dinner at home. My mother made lasagna and stated, "Well, we don't want to make a fuss." The deepest pain was the clear message that I didn't matter as much. Lena was always framed as the star with potential, while I was simply just there. Even my successes were dismissed with phrases like, "Nora's smart. She doesn't need help." My capability felt like a curse. After college, I moved out immediately, found a tiny apartment, and began building my life on my own terms. I worked diligently, lived frugally, and focused on saving. Meanwhile, Lena married Victor, whom my parents adore despite the fact he is always between jobs. They now have 3 children, Chloe 5, Dylan 4, and baby Leo 2. My parents constantly bail them out, including providing money for a new car and offering to babysit every weekend when Lena complained about stress. I still feel like I will always be second place to Lena regardless of my independent achievements. This is why I share very little about my life with my family. Recently, I decided it was time to look for a house, having rented my tiny apartment, a glorified shoebox, for years. I reached the point where I felt, you know what, I deserve this. I kept the house search secret because my family cannot simply be happy for anyone. Everything turns into a group project focused on benefiting Lena and her children. I thought silence was easiest until the purchase was finalized. Unfortunately, the news slipped out through a nosy coworker named Lisa, who mentioned my house hunting to Lena's neighbor, and the news traveled quickly across Arizona. My mother called shortly after, overly cheerful, demanding why I hadn't told them. I played dumb, claiming I was just browsing. My mother ignored this and immediately stated that she and Lena had great ideas. She insisted I would need something large enough for everyone, specifically mentioning at least 4 bedrooms for the kids. She continued, demanding space for Lena's family during visits, space for them, my parents, and suggested the location should be close to Lena's current neighborhood. My potential home was instantly redefined as the solution to their problems. The harassment began instantly. My mother and Lena started flooding me with house listings, sending at least a dozen links daily. These were huge, ridiculous places, 4 or 5 bedrooms, pools, and 3-car garages. They treated my search as if I were shopping for a reality show mansion. One day, my mother texted, "Did you see that one on Desert Vista Road? It's a huge one, just perfect." Lena sent a link to a 6-bedroom house with a note. "This would be so suitable for us. We could finally have space to spread out us." I realized my house search had become a family group effort. They stopped pretending the search was for me. Every suggestion was geared toward Lena's family. "This one has a finished basement. Victor could turn it into his man cave. The kids would love the pool. Look, Nora, there's even a guest room for Mom and Dad when they visit." The constant barrage was exhausting. I tried gently reminding them I was looking for something small, just for myself, but that only intensified their efforts. So, I muted the group chat, ignored their texts, and hoped they would get the hint. I continued searching alone, avoiding properties near Lena's neighborhood to prevent gossip. I finally found the perfect house, a small 2-bedroom casita just outside the city. It was not fancy but had everything I desired: a cozy porch, a sunny kitchen, and a backyard large enough for a garden. The second I walked through the door, I knew it was mine. I put in an offer, which was accepted. I felt indescribably good, having done something entirely for myself without anyone else's input. I kept the purchase secret. Then my mother called, announcing a family dinner the following weekend and demanding I attend. I decided to attend and planned to drop the bomb that I had already purchased a house. I arrived at my parents' house at 6 p.m., where Anna's children were running around screaming, and Victor was parked on the couch watching TV. We sat for dinner, and Lena quickly began complaining about how hard it was to manage 3 kids. "Leo keeps waking up in the middle of the night," she said, adding, "We're just so cramped I feel like I'm losing my mind." My mother then cleared her throat, signaling an announcement. "Nora," she declared with an over-the-top smile, "we think we found the perfect house for you." Lena chimed in. "It's a beautiful place, and it's only a few blocks from us. It has 5 bedrooms, a huge yard for the kids, and even a guest suite." My mother interrupted, claiming, "It's perfect for everyone," mentioning that the children would finally have their own rooms. Victor could set up an office, and it was close to good schools. They were no longer pretending this was about me. Lena, smiling confidently, asked, "We can go see it tomorrow if you want." I decided I had endured enough. I put down my fork and stated clearly, "I already bought a house." The room fell completely silent. "What?" my mother demanded, her voice sharp. "I bought a house," I repeated. "It's a small 2-bedroom casita just outside the city. It's perfect for me." Anna's jaw dropped. "A casita!" she sputtered with disbelief. How are we supposed to fit in a casita? You're not, I replied, because it's my house. I bought it for me. My mother accused me of making a monumental decision without consulting them. We've been working so hard to find the perfect place for you. No, I countered, struggling to remain calm. You've been working hard to find the perfect place for Lena and her family. Lena's voice became high-pitched as she began to cry. But we need this, Nora. Do you know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment? Chloe and Dylan have to share a room, and Leo's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to the kids. That's not my problem, Lena, I stated, taking a deep breath. I've worked hard to get to this point, and I'm not giving up my dream house to fix your situation. My father intervened, slamming his hand on the table and shouting, You're being selfish, Nora. Family is supposed to help each other. What's wrong with you? I stood up, my heart pounding. I'm not selfish. I'm finally standing up for myself. And if that makes me the bad guy in your eyes, so be it. The room exploded into chaos. Lena was crying, my mother was yelling, and my father ranted about his disappointment. Victor simply remained seated, shoving food into his mouth. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. My mother followed, shouting, You can't just walk away from your family like this. I turned back and said, Watch me. I drove home, shaking with a mix of anger and relief, having finally taken a stand. The fallout escalated exactly as feared. The first text arrived that night from Lena, a photo of her children cramped on the couch surrounded by toys captioned, Look how cramped we are. Do you think this is fair to Chloe and Dylan? I did not reply. The next day, I woke up to 5 missed calls from my mother and a string of texts from Lena. Lena wrote, You always think about yourself. I thought family mattered to you. Another claimed, Mom is so upset she couldn't even sleep last night. Lena then delivered the critical insult. You've changed, Nora. This isn't the sister I grew up with. I realized this was true because the sister she knew lacked a backbone. I muted them, but the messages continued relentlessly. My mother would chime in every few hours with her gems. You're being so selfish, Nora. We're all disappointed in you. I hope you realize what you're doing to Lena's kids. And the demand. You need to reconsider. It's not too late to sell the house and buy something better suited for the family. When I stopped answering texts, they began leaving voicemails, the same guilt-ridden nonsense, making it harder to ignore. My father called and yelled for 5 straight minutes about how I was tearing the family apart. The harassment expanded to extended family. An aunt I hadn't spoken to in years called me, saying, I heard about what's going on with Lena. Can't you find it in your heart to help? Family comes first, Nora. I told her I wasn't discussing it and hung up. Next was a social media attack. Lena posted a photo of her children squeezed onto their bunk bed, captioned, All they want is a little space to grow, but I guess some people think family isn't worth helping anymore. The comments filled with sympathy, calling me a villain who abandoned my family. I stayed quiet. Then my mother posted a photograph of my actual house, the casita, with a caption, It's so sad when someone forgets where they came from. Family sacrifices so much for you, and this is how they repay you. I immediately blocked both of them. The stress was intense. I felt a wave of anxiety every time my phone buzzed. Things hit a low point when Lena showed up at my apartment one evening unannounced, holding Leo with the other 2 children in tow. She looked exhausted, and the children were whining. Nora, we need to talk, she said. I stood in the doorway, blocking their entry. Lena pleaded that they had nowhere else to go because the landlord was raising the rent and asked to stay for a little while because the children needed stability. I stood firm. Lena, I'm sorry you're struggling, but my house isn't an option. It's not big enough, and honestly, this isn't my responsibility. She accused me. So that's it? You're just going to let us suffer. I insisted. I've worked hard to get where I am, and I'm not going to let you guilt me into giving it all up. She stormed off, The next morning, my mother called, calling me heartless, cold, and ungrateful. I hung up without speaking. Realizing they would never stop, I decided to change my phone number the next morning and only give it to trusted contacts. I also blocked them across all social media platforms. The peace was short-lived. Last weekend, my mother showed up at my new house unannounced. I found her standing on my porch with a pie, wearing the fakest smile I've ever seen. She claimed she brought my favorite, apple pie, it's cherry. I let her in to avoid a scene. She immediately began surveying the house, taking inventory. She offered a calculated apology. Things got a little heated, and I realized now that we were wrong to push you like that. You've worked hard for this house, and I should have respected your decisions. She then launched into a monologue about how proud she was and blamed the stress of Lena's situation for everyone's behavior. Then came the calculated move. I was thinking maybe we could have a fresh start. I'd love to come over again sometime. Maybe bring Lena and the kids. It'd be nice for everyone to see your new place. I kept my cool and refused. I don't think that's a good idea right now. I'm not ready for that yet. She nodded, but her smile was tight, and her eyes kept darting around the room like she was sizing up the place. She left after insisting she just wanted us to be a family again. I realized the apology was dishonest. She had glossed over weeks of intense harassment and the fact that I had blocked her. The suggestion about bringing Lena and the children felt calculated, as if she was testing the waters to see what boundaries I would permit her to violate. I wish I could say things calmed down, but they escalated to full-on crazy. My gut feeling about my mother's visit was correct. She had been way too interested in every detail of my house, from the locks on the doors to the layout of the rooms, and I now realized this was part of a bigger plan. Last Saturday, I returned home from errands around noon. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Lena's SUV parked right in front of my casita. I heard voices inside and realized the devastating truth. Lena, Victor, and the children were inside my house. The scene was chaos. Chloe and Dylan were sprawled on my couch, surrounded by snacks. Baby Leo was chewing on one of my throw pillows. Victor was in the kitchen, raiding my fridge. Lena was in the sunroom, rearranging my furniture. What the hell is going on? I demanded, my voice shaking. Lena looked up, completely unfazed. Oh, hey, Nora. We figured it'd be easier to just move in while you were out. I asked if she was serious. She rolled her eyes and explained. Mom gave us the key. She said it'd be fine. She was referring to the spare key left during my mother's apology visit. Lena insisted. We really needed the space, and your house is perfect for us. It could have been bigger if you'd listened to us, but it'll do. Get out! I shouted. Victor chimed in, leaning against my fridge. You're single. You don't need all the space. This house makes way more sense for us. They were treating my home like a handout for Lena. Lena scoffed. We're family, Nora. Stop being so dramatic. We've already started settling in. It's not like you're using all the space anyway. Instead of arguing, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Lena challenged me. Seriously? You're calling the cops on your own family. Watch me, I replied. I calmly explained to the dispatcher that my sister and her family had illegally broken into my home and were refusing to leave. The responding officers were professional and firm. Lena and Victor offered their ridiculous explanation, we're family, and insisted I had plenty of space, but the officers confirmed they were trespassing and ordered them to leave immediately. Lena started crying, claiming she didn't know it was a big deal. I stayed silent as the officers handled the removal, which was satisfying. After they left, the officer asked if I wanted to press charges. I declined, requesting only that they file a report and stay away from my property. My house felt violated. The invasion was not a misunderstanding but entitlement, plain and simple. The betrayal that my own mother provided the key left me speechless. I immediately called a locksmith to change every lock and plan to install a security system. I contacted my lawyer to draft and send a formal cease and desist letter to my mother, Lena, and Victor, threatening legal action if the harassment continues. I am furious but also numb, wondering if this ordeal is finally over.